So I suspect the problem's with charter, not necessarily with our televising, because we're able to get it onto the internet.
We pay our charter bill this month?
Pardon me?
Do we pay our charter bill this month?
We never know.
Actually,
We never know.
Okay, thank you. Hang around.
Tim, can you hang around till after this meeting? I'd like to meet for a few minutes. John, you too?
Okay, welcome to the August 31st, 2010 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. And we have a roll call, please.
Agency members: Draymond.
here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver. Here. Chair Frieden.
Here. And we hear your report.
The agenda for the August 31st, 2010 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, August 26, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall, and there are no minutes for approval for this meeting.
Okay, what's next, please?
Next is oral communications. The same rules will apply as they did to the housing oral communications.
Okay, I have no cards.
There was one card, I believe. So. Yes, we do have one.
Okay. Mike Mohill.
Sorry, Chair.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and council members. My name is Mike Mohill, long-term resident of Glendale. I'd like to talk about two subject matters. First one will be BevMo moving in downtown. On August the 10th, the City Council, acting as the redevelopment agency, voted 3-1 to grant a series of entitlements needed for BevMo Liquor to move forward with a proposed location on Grand Boulevard. Councilman Dave Weaver abstained from the vote as he was blindsided and knew nothing of the project, and why was the agency acting very secretively these past 14 months. Nothing like this had happened to me in the past, he said. Staff and colleagues kept Mr. Weaver and Mayor Aaron Najarian uninformed. Both argued against the plan, saying they didn't learn about the BevMo move until Saturday before the August 10th redevelopment agency meeting. I am very surprised the city manager, Starbird, didn't have the package ready for you two men before the Tuesday afternoon meeting. After all, the loyalty you men have shown Mr. Starbird through the years. Why didn't you men have the needed package and time to review the documents? And why were council members John Draymond, Laura Friedman, and Frank Quintero strong supporters of the plan with little debate, ready to vote on the plan? Was Mr. Starbird playing favorites, or was this politics? Only the other night, Mr. Weaver was criticizing the watchdogs of the city for being ready to compare Glendale with the city of Bell. How does it feel, Mr. Weaver and Mr. Najarian, when you are on the wrong side of our city manager? Perhaps you should have been spent more time talking with the city council members from West Covina, where Mr. Starbird's previous employer, and his manipulation techniques before you hired him. Business-friendly Glendale. Heard there was a company that wanted to move to Glendale without the business tax, but chose to move to Burbank because of the slow response they received from Glendale city staff in permitting the build-out. Burbank has a business tax, but the company could be up and running in just a matter of a few months. Where in Glendale, one never knows how long it's going to take before the permit process is completed. Look at today, for example. Maybe if Glendale had a business tax, staff and agency members would feel the urgency to move much faster. When I asked last time before the redevelopment agency about what was going on Maryland Avenue, redevelopment agency chairwoman Freeman said, we had to keep things quiet. Is that so officials can get financial backing for their next campaign and office holder accounts? Who knows? Now I know how the mayor and Councilman Weaver felt being in the dark while dealing with the redevelopment agency. Well, those secret meetings, were they Brown Act violations? In the meantime, over there with our neighbor Pasadena, the financially troubled symphony and Pops just hired Marvin Hamlish, the celebrated Oscar, Tony, and Emmy-winning composer, to conduct their symphony. And the reorganized Pasadena Playhouse will be opening their doors very, very soon. What is Glendale Redevelopment Agency doing, and the director of the agency as well? Must we, may I say, continue to be in the shadows of Burbank and Pasadena? As they go through their economic problems today, they seem to be up and running again. Look at the Pasadena Pops. Okay? Again, let's stay out of the shadow of Pasadena. Thank you.
Herbert Milano?
Agency Chair Friedman, members of the Redevelopment Agency, and city staff. First, I want to thank you for, I guess I'm very appreciative of the kind of dialogue we just had in the previous agency, the Housing Authority meeting. And I think it's the kind of dialogue that allows us to gauge how in tune our representatives happen to be with regard to the issues that come before you. I want to be able to address, if I may, an issue that has been fairly important to me because I had a business in Glendale, and I originally opened back in 1989, and my office was on Broadway in Orange. And I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I had an opportunity to move to Pasadena, where I had my office for 10 years, because they had a fairly vibrant arrangement with new businesses with regard to our ability to be able to hire staff and have it be part of an area that they considered to be of a partnership. Nonetheless, I stayed in Pasadena for 10 years and then moved back into Glendale, where my offices were on Brand Boulevard. I think Mr. Weaver came to see us a couple of times back in the 2001-2002 timeframe. So it's an area that I know. So here it is. I lived in Glendale. I had my businesses here. I conducted pretty much all of my affairs in the central part, in the core of downtown. And one of the things that I am aware is that for many of the merchants and for many of the tenants, they need to pay for the electricity of those units or of those particular floors or the frontage. And I know, by looking at the electrical rates that I pay today, that it is perhaps one of the highest electricity rates for commercial rates in California. Because I'm paying today on my apartment building about 21 cents per kilowatt hour. And I compare that to very other cities, to what they report on the statistical reports, and it's at least 60% higher than LA. So sometimes when I hear the thought that we don't pay our fair share, I know that we transferred $19 million from the electrical utility over to the general fund. And that works like a hidden tax for us. As I was talking to many merchants this past week, some of them told me that they were choking. Literally, they went like this. Our electricity rates are incredibly high, and many of our merchants are really feeling the pain. You know, these are hard times for a lot of people out there, especially for merchants. And you can only take a look at the number of square feet of commercial space that is vacant. That tells you something. There is some kind of dynamic taking place that I figure this agency ought to know. Why is it that Glendale has such a large vacancy on commercial properties compared to Burbank? What is the dynamic that needs to take place to energize the city, to move along, to say we are creating a more vibrant city for commerce? I think it's a fair question. I'd like to add a couple of things, if I may, with regard to how things can come together. The redevelopment agency, I believe, helped on the adult recreation center. Now there's parkland, there's facilities, there's additional aid and assistance to, let's say, seniors. And maybe it could be used to assist others as well. Offices could be set up to provide some of the other activities that are done by those agencies that are, providing programs for low-income housing. And imagine for a moment that on the east side of the adult recreation center, we got all those parking lots and where the Chamber of Commerce is. Imagine that that land would become available. Imagine the synergy that you would have between the parkland, the adult recreation center, the businesses nearby, the access to transportation, and at the same time, the ability to be able to build effectively. Because when you're able to maximize the dollars invested for housing, that means that more people and more families are taking advantage. And I think it is a good idea, as Mr. Najarian proposed, that we really look very hard at a way of expanding the availability, those dollars that we use for low-income housing, especially in areas that are almost designed to maximize its use. I think that there are solutions that this agency can promote to bring in the type of information that will allow you to make better decisions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any comments in response? Okay, what's next, please?
Now, comment or two. One, I told people as soon as the Bell issue broke out that the gadflies would start comparing Glendale to Bell, and it's still going on. It's very insulting to sit here and attack probably the best city manager in the state of California. Mr. Gadfly Mohill, you may not think that, but he is respected highly up and down the state of California. And for you to come in and constantly, and Milano, writing it up in the throwaway rags, insulting this fine city manager, you're wrong. You stand alone in this community with people like you. Starbird is the best city manager that I've seen around. He's respected, and a lot of his disciples now hold jobs because of him. And as far as the Pasadena Symphony, they moved from Descanso Gardens down to the lawn around the Rose Bowl because they couldn't pay the money. They're seriously in debt, and they're hoping their new conductor will help get them out of debt. Maybe they'll only be $500,000 in debt, where they were millions in debt. So there's nothing to compare against. Our symphony isn't doing any better. Changing times, I guess. But there's a new symphony in Glendale. What's the name of it?
Two new symphonies.
Two new symphonies.
Glendale Philharmonic and the Glendale Symphony and the Glendale Renaissance Orchestra.
Glendale
so there's
Renaissance.
three.
That's right. So there's plenty of alternatives, changing times, different demographics, and progress. Thank you.
And by the way, I believe it's September 10th.
Yeah, at the
The
Alex.
Luft.
Yes.
They're having Lorna Luft, the Glendale Renaissance Orchestra at the
Right.
Alex Theater.
Yep, should be
Mr.
good.
Draymond.
I wanted to comment on just one thing that Mr. Mohill had to say. It related to the Pasadena Playhouse. And Mr. Mohill, I'm not saying this as a criticism of you, but just a factual comment, because as someone who, let me put it this way: anybody that speaks long enough over a period of time in front of the public can kind of meet themselves coming and going, and it's the same with people who come to the podium to speak. You might want to check. It wasn't but a few months ago that you were here with your headline news showing us an article as to why we shouldn't be putting any of our eggs in the theater basket because, as you put it, look at the LA Times article about the Pasadena Playhouse going down. Now we should be more like them because they're reopening. Anyway, you might want to look at that. It really becomes, I'm not sure what the message is that the agency is supposed to take from that. You need a program sometimes to keep it straight when the Pasadena Playhouse is used 1 month to say we shouldn't follow in those shoes, and the next month to say you should follow in those shoes. Anyhow, thank you, Ms. Friedman.
Okay. Let's What's next, please?
On the business agenda at 6A is Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding professional services agreement change orders in connection with various projects in the Central Glendale and San Fernando Road Corridor redevelopment project areas. At 6A1 is a resolution appropriating $41,000 to provide funding for the fire plan check services related to the project within the Disney GC3 campus. 6A2 is a motion approving change order for Kaiser Marston Associates in an amount not to exceed $25,000 for Block 2930 Marketplace, $10,000 on Hyatt Place, Glendale Comar, $15,000. At A3 is a motion approving change order for North Star Branding Services for a citywide branding effort in an amount not to exceed $15,000. And at A4 is a motion approving change order for a School of Self-Reliance Glendale Farmers Market in an amount not to exceed $15,000 for management of the Glendale Farmers Market.
And for a report, are we going to the finest city manager in the state of California or to the finest redevelopment director in the state of California? But the latter.
I'm not sure where the other guy is sitting right now, so we'll go to Phil.
Mr. Chair,
He's joking, Mr. Lansing. We love you. Okay?
Mr. Chair, members of the redevelopment agency.
Oh.
The item before you is a change order by City Council Redevelopment Agency policy. We cannot exceed, or we should not exceed, $50,000 of any contract unless we come back to you. The items before you are three consultants, I should say, that work for us on specific projects, and then the fourth is project cost for the GC3 Phase 2 project that you recently approved the design on. Staff is here if you have any questions.
Yes.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Starting with 1A, the Block 29, Block 30 Marketplace, another $10,000 to do a financial feasibility pro forma review market analysis associated with potential tenant attraction program being considered for the marketplace. So this is a private company that has space there in the marketplace that's available. So what exactly are we doing with this $10,000 feasibility study?
There is a request for agency assistance that we anticipate coming, and we wanted to add dollars to this specific project in case that did come forward, that we'd be able to analyze and bring forward to you.
Okay, well, I'll be voting no on that one. Then on 1B, the same thing, the Hyatt Place, change order of $15,000 to complete the financial feasibility. I mean, do we have to pay Kaiser Marston $15,000? Don't we have anyone on the staff, after all of these years, that's able to do this? That we have to pay an outside vendor to do a financial feasibility study?
Your staff can understand the pro forma. The benefit that Kaiser Marston brings to the table is their activity all around the state of California. They will know what other cities, what other projects, what other deals are doing, and that's where we find them a benefit. In this particular case, this cost is being paid by a developer deposit, so we've asked the developer to pay for that.
Oh, but it's still money. I mean, everyone that works for redevelopment, or at least the upper levels of redevelopment, you've been around for years. I mean, you have the finance department that I assume could provide some sort of backup. I'm just at a loss for why we have to continue to give money to these outside vendors for the most basic thing, but especially the marketplace. I mean, they want to bring in a certain type of tenant to the second floor of the marketplace or whatever it is that they're going to do, but we now have to provide a feasibility study, and like I say, I don't see it.
Mr. Starbird?
Let me use both of these as examples. The answer, Mr. Quintero, is yes, you do need their expertise. and here's why staff can't do it. As Phil pointed out, we may be able to sort through a pro forma and know what the pieces are, but whether or not a certain percentage or a certain allowance being put in the pro forma for anything from furnishings to operations, we won't know what the current state of the art is among hotel operators. So Kaiser Marston has a person who literally specializes in hotels. They see hotel after hotel after hotel in Southern California and across the state, and they know what somebody is expecting to pay for a certain level and quality of hotel in a pro forma. We don't know that. I mean, we just don't. With respect to the marketplace, we expect you will have a request for multiple millions of dollars to be invested in the marketplace, that they'll want our participation. My direction to staff has been, I want a complete strategy for the marketplace before we consider investing in one more business, major as it is, coming in. You know, when we sit down with that pro forma and look at it, yeah, we need the assistance of someone like Kaiser Marston, or in housing we use Tim's firm, because we don't see lots of these projects and don't know what some of the basic percentages and outside parameters ought to be to know when something in a pro forma is the right percentage to be applied or is somehow off the mark and maybe we're being taken advantage of. So when it comes to these projects, one by one, the dollars add up over time with Kaiser Marston, but to spend, for example, $10,000 evaluating a pro forma on a hotel project and its feasibility is really money very well spent considering the cost of the agency and the investment that we make. So I would encourage you to continue to use these people. Your staff is very good. Yes, we see projects, but we don't have nearly the depth of experience that experts like Tim and people with Kaiser Marston have on these projects. We just don't.
Well, I put the two categories, I mean, they're two different categories. Hotels, to me, are a different animal. But since I'm not into subsidizing retailers as they move from one location to the other, I just, like I say, the marketplace to me is privately owned, and we can do whatever we can to promote the business, et cetera, but when we start subsidizing retailers, you can leave me out of it. I just don't think that's a good idea.
Mr. Lansafane, for my benefit, can you elaborate on 1A and what that $10,000 would actually be used for? In other words, if you were to spend that and get your perfect report back or your perfect product back for that $10,000, what would it look like? That's my first question, so that I understand what it is I'd be voting for. And secondly, can you explain with 1B about the developer deposit, how that works, and how that all, just what our commitment is, what their commitment is, what the expectation of what that deposit was to be used for, so that, again, that we have a little more understanding of that?
Sure. On 1A, this $10,000 is a number that we put there. Whether we would spend it all, I don't think we would exceed it. I don't expect to spend it all either. What we would get is analysis of not only a pro forma from the developer that says, here's where I've got a gap trying to attract this tenant. But as Mr. Starbird said, we're looking for the whole project. What is it going to mean? And so I expect some information from the project owner as well as to what he needs to spend, what kind of repositioning needs to take place, and whether our assistance would be warranted. Our end product would most likely be a memo with that analysis on a point-by-point basis.
I might add, at times they may sit down with us, and the developer and question them on the pieces of their pro forma and what they're doing and how their numbers are coming the way they are. That's not uncommon at all, and all that time, of course, has to be paid for.
Well, you just use the term developer. That implies that something is going to get built. This is an existing retail site that's been through multiple
project owner
reiterations. Yeah, that companies move in, they're there for a while, they move out. Just wanted to make that point.
So would this money be used for helping individual merchants, or is it more for strategic planning and visioning for that whole complex? What exactly is the intent?
It would be more for financial and economic analysis of proposals that are made to the redevelopment agency. We would like your assistance with this tenant. here's why we can't pay for it. And as Mr. Starbird said, we can go through it and look and understand it, but we're not going to know exact percentages, perhaps build-out costs, like a Kaiser Marston would from being active around the state.
So just to be clear, they come to us, say, we really want to get a Joe's Crab Shack on the second floor, but we need $500,000 for the giant lit up crab on the top. And this would be a great thing for the area. This money then would be for Kaiser Marstead to go out and look at Joe's Crab Shack, which I just made up. I don't know if there really is one. It's a chain? All right, I take it back. Sarah's Crab Shack.
Not only is it a chain, but their attorneys are drafting a letter to you right now.
So they would go out and they would look at how they perform in similar areas, what kind of tax revenue they bring in, whether that would be a good investment for the agency. Is that what this is all about?
Yes, as well as when they said $500,000, and the numbers that we're expecting here are larger than that, but when they said we need $500,000, show us why. What is the rent that they're generating? What is the return that you need to get? What are the maintenance costs? Why can't you or the tenant provide that? And again, we'll understand generally what all the elements are, but it could be a small percentage that would cause that gap that we need to know, is that right or not?
Mr. Starbird, I saw your hand.
Well, only to say that without the ability to use these people, and we do it as judiciously as we can, we end up having one hand tied behind our backs as we try and bring you the information you need to make a decision. Now, on something like this, if they come into us with a proposal, which we're expecting them to, we can bring that to you and say, if you want to analyze this any further, then authorize us to retain Kaiser Marston to assist us in that analysis, so you can make that decision then. Frankly, we'd like to do a little bit of that pre-work when they first walk in, so when we first bring it to you, we can have some of that feedback, but this doesn't get spent all up front. I mean, bulk of this wouldn't get spent until we got some expression of interest from you. So this is one of those that if you wanted to, you can defer this until they actually give us a proposal. At that time, we'll ask you to help us retain Kaiser Marston. But in any case, I think we need to have people like this in order to do an effective job.
Any other questions before I go to the public?
Not on this particular topic, but, I mean, not on the Kaiser Marston marketplace issue, but on one of the host of 6A items.
It's up to you. You can ask it now or ask it after the speaker.
Mr. Lansfame is already at the podium, so I'll save him some footsteps. Moving from Kaiser Marston to asparagus, item 4, regard to the farmers market. I just wanted to ask, in the report, there's a $15,000 change order to fund the operations agreement with the manager. And it mentions that the current contract amount is $150,000 since 2000, since the year July of 2000, at the inception of the market, and that will bring the total contract to $165,000. What is that contract? In other words, what are we getting for? Well, I mean, in other words, what is that paying for?
It pays for the manager and their assistant. They manage and coordinate all the vendors there. They are responsible for cleanup and maintenance of the site once they're finished. This is the cost. It is offset by revenues of about $20,000 a year that we receive from the market.
And is it going to anything other than the salaries? That $165,000?
I don't believe it goes to anything other than, you mean for marketing or something like that?
Well, I don't know. It's a contract. I don't have the contract, so I'm asking you.
Yeah, I believe it is the salaries for any maintenance costs if they have somebody other than the two that are doing that. And it may be for some marketing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lansford.
And that is $15,000 a year, those salaries?
Yes.
Okay. Because this is from 2000 until 2011. $15,000 a year.
We did it last year, too.
No, I know we did.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, it's about $20,000. Yes, which leaves about a $5,000 something. Thank you.
Okay. I have one card, Herbert Milano.
Two minutes?
Three.
Three.
Chair Friedman, members of the Redevelopment Agency, I have a few questions with regard to all of these topics on this agenda item. First of all, on Kaiser Marston, I don't know if my memory serves me correctly, but were they not consultants to the Americana project as well? And I was wondering, how accurate have their forecasts been? If we go back to their forecast, going back to say 2005 or before, can we really say that their forecasts and their activities and their evaluations have been accurate? And how do we know that that we don't need to oversee or review how accurate they've been? Once the Americana opened, we know that it sucked a lot of the other businesses away from brand. We also know that even away from brand, other entities that were vibrant as well, and merchants that were in other places moved to the Americana. So I was wondering, how these things are actually working together. Now let me quickly jump to the next one, which is the North Star Destination Strategies, the citywide branding effort. How do we measure success on that? And how do we know that these additional funds are giving you any more success than what we're getting now? One of the questions that I asked when this proposal was made earlier was, how do you measure success of this branding? Is it we're able to rent more floor space? We get more merchants coming into Glendale? What exactly is the measure of success? And then on item 3, the School of Self-Reliance Farmers Market contract, it appears that this is a management contract of some kind where we're paying $165,000 for the management of the farmers market. If it is, I think it's a tremendous amount, $3,000 a week for that, 3 to 4 hours on Thursday that we have a farmers market. I don't know, I'm interpreting it that way just from the limited information here. So perhaps the agency can explain exactly what is being paid for here, and I wish that there were more information available on the documents that I put on the website. Thank you very much.
Mr. Starbird?
As we noted earlier in the conversation just a minute and a half ago,
That's why I asked the question.
as noted in the staff report, in the interest of full disclosure and transparency, we give you the total amount since the inception of a contract with any of these consultants since the beginning of time. In this case, we've contracted with this firm since July of 2000. So in the past 10 years, we have spent roughly $15,000 a year on the contract. That's the $150,000 that's noted. An additional year at $15,000 for the year brings it to $165,000. That's not an annual number. That's the number for what will be 11 years of service at $15,000 a year. And yes, Kaiser Marston is relatively accurate in their predictions on economics. They were with respect to the Americana.
How do you measure that?
He was a little quicker than you.
I may be older, but no, I remember back when we were studying the Americana, we had a report, if I'm not wrong, that stated businesses in mid-brand would suffer a downturn for a minimum of 1 year after the Americana opened before they would start recovering. I don't know if they've recovered, but I do know in the middle of all that, whatever predictions were made on the economy went south. So you can't look at one thing in isolation and draw a conclusion. Mid-brand maybe hasn't come back, but that's the economy driven. So Kaiser Marston, anybody makes the best predictions they can based on the economy too. And who could have predicted where we are today?
Madam Chair, if I can. A year after the Americana opened, you did receive a report on the economic impacts of the Americana. And not turning to Kaiser Marston, we turned to the consultants that analyze our sales tax revenues for us. And you recall you received numbers on the retail sales in the downtown area, in the Galleria, in other parts of Glendale from the Americana. And the consultant that analyzes our retail sales, their comment was, the Americana has saved your bacon. because, frankly, the downtown in Glendale had not gone down as much as they saw in other regions. The Galleria had actually improved, and the only difference in all of that was the Americana was present during one of the sharpest downturns in California history. So, once again, you did have a report. All the indicators are the Americana has actually added and supported.
Okay, now, Mr. Draymond. You're next.
The question was answered. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Would you like a motion now?
Well, Mr. Najarian, did you?
No, I'm ready to second the motion.
I'll move 6A, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I'd like to have them separated because I plan on
Okay.
voting no.
Does
I'll
not
move-
Separate them out?
I'll move 6A, 1.
Second.
Hey, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Friedman.
Yes.
I'll move 6A, 2.
Second.
Roll call. Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Excuse me. No.
Wait, we heard you the first time.
The record will reflect that agency
vote.
members, Quintero's vote was no.
Yes. I'll move 6A, 3.
Well, I didn't.
But
wait,
we
wait,
didn't
wait,
have,
wait,
we
wait,
didn't
wait.
have the chairs.
I didn't finish roll call.
Well, we're getting
I
a
get
little
to
ahead of
vote
ourselves.
also.
Chair Friedman.
Quite right. I'm going to vote yes, but I would like to ask staff that before you spend this money, you bring it to us so that we have the approval, that we have the ability to approve or disapprove individual expenditures. Is that?
There's two components to this motion. One is the Hyatt Places, which I understand is part of a deposit. The other is Kaiser Marston for Block 29
This is the
and 30.
Kaiser Marston,
Right.
and it's not going to be part of the motion. This is just my request to you that we have some say on which projects this gets spent on. Is that possible?
Well, we've identified the two projects. My suggestion was, as it relates to the marketplace,
I'm talking about the marketplace.
if you
Yeah.
want, at the time they bring in the proposal, we can come back to you and ask us if you want us to proceed to analyze that one.
I would say yes, because my guess is that there may be some proposals that we're going to dismiss out of hand that we don't need to spend the money on. It's possible. No?
Well, I would think you'd want a little bit of analysis of it beforehand, but we can do
don't know.
that.
I will leave it.
I don't
That's
know
the council's
anything.
pleasure, we can do
You know what?
that.
I will leave
in
it
the
up to
blind.
your discretion, but I think you understand the concern that we spend a lot of money on projects that we really don't have much interest in pursuing. So let's use some discretion with that. So I will vote yes.
I'm in the blind right now.
Okay.
I'll move 6A, 3.
Second.
Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Friedman.
Yes.
And I'll move 6A, 4.
Second.
Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Friedman.
Yes.
I'd like to now move we adjourn.
Actually, I have one staff comment.
Staff comments.
Just one, I'm sorry. I would like to know soon what is happening with the Art in Vacant Storefronts project. I've been asking and asking, have not gotten an answer. I know members of the public have tried to reach them and not gotten calls back, which I find rude. Even if it's to say they haven't, finished whatever they're doing, they should at least be returning calls to members of the public. And I don't understand why it's been, how many months has it been now since we approved this? Many. And we haven't seen any motion at all, so.
Agency Chair, I'm happy to address your concerns. We have been negotiating the contract. Unfortunately, there's a lot of insurance requirements that Praxis has to meet, and we finally finalized that, but that hasn't precluded them from providing us a strategic plan. In the interim, we did a lot of outreach to art organizations. We have a link on our website, so any interested artists can provide their information, as well as property owners who are interested in participating in the program. We have approximately 250 artists that are on the list. Any phone calls that we have gone in our office have come directly to me, and I've answered any questions artists have had. If they've contacted the consultant directly, I can follow up with Praxis to find out why those calls were not returned. But any calls that have come to our office, I have personally spoken to the artists. As soon as we finalize the contract, hopefully it'll be this week, we are going to issue a call for artists. Sometime in September, we are going to allocate approximately 1 month for artists to respond to that call. We're hoping to get the majority of the responses within this 1 month period, but we are going to accept any proposals after that. We don't want to preclude any artists from providing us their artwork and their proposals. And right now, we are identifying key sites that we would like to have these temporary installations and galleries in. And there has been a lot of outreach that has been done to property owners. And there is interest from property owners, but if the agency members do have any ideas for locations, if any property owners have approached you and have said that they are interested, please have them contact me directly. But that is the status. As soon as the call for artists is available, we're going to do another mass email to through the Arts and Culture Commission's newsletter, through Glendale Arts, through Praxis's mailing list. I think the Arts and Culture Commission staff, Cultural Affairs, has their own list. There's the Brand Associates. I can't remember all of the organizations, but we have them covered, so we're definitely going to do a lot of outreach so we get Glendale artists to respond to that. And I will do a quick presentation during the Arts and Culture Commission meeting as soon as that call for artists is available, and I will come to this agency and make that presentation at that time.
Well, thank you for the update. I'm very glad to hear that it's moving forward. I do hope that whatever that link is on our website can be placed more prominently, because I'm still getting multiple calls about this with people unable to find information. So wherever we've put it, it doesn't seem to be getting to the right people. But I'm glad that it's going to be also on the Glendale Arts website, and that Arts and Culture will talk about it. Because the sooner we can get that process moving, the better for everyone involved. So thank you for the update.
You're welcome. And the link is on the city website. Sometimes as we add new headlines, it gets bumped down. We do have a banner. If something more urgent and important comes up, it gets bumped out. So I always call IS on a weekly basis and ask them to put it first so that people do see it. And every time we do that, we get another 10 entries. So if someone has difficulty finding that link, just call our office and we will be happy to get down their information and include it on our list.
Okay. All right. You want to make your motion again?
So, motion to adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Is there a second? Thank you.
If you have a